And joining us on the phone here in Washington is Luke Coffey. He is the director of the Allison Center for Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. What is this all about?
Well, this is really about regime preservation. This is what Vladimir Putin does best. This is about him setting up the next stages of his rule and influence in Russia. And right now he's clearing the decks to get his power consolidated well into the future after his current presidential term limit expires in 2024.
The former president, current prime minister, also resigning. Was that expected? Was it a surprise?
Well, many people thought that Medvedev was on the way out for a number of years. He's had a falling out with some senior Russian oligarchs, and many people thought he wouldn't be hanging around too much longer, even though a decade ago he was suspected as being the anointed one for Putin, the one who would follow Putin back into the presidency. But he was curiously put into a new position, the deputy head of Russia's Security Council, which makes him still influential behind the scenes, but no one's really sure how this is going to play out going into the future, because this was a role that was just created.
And more significantly, how is all of this playing out across Russia?
Well, I think Russians generally are very skeptical about the call for new and drastic changes in the Constitution or in the system of government. I think many people will suspect this will ultimately be business as usual, that Vladimir Putin will remain in power for the foreseeable future.
Vladimir Putin is 67 years old, and he has in the past tried to figure out ways to stay in power. How's he able to do that?
Well, because of his constitutional gymnastics, he's been in power since 1999, and it looks like he'll be in power for the rest of his life. And not only is he relatively young, we also know he's in good health. He likes to remind us with his photos of him hunting and scuba diving and horseback riding. So he's a very astute, very savvy politician. He's figured out a way to balance different political interests with different business interests in Russia, and ultimately, he's a survivor, and that's what we're seeing play out right now.
But it comes at a time where the Russian economy is weak and getting weaker.
That is very true. But one thing that Vladimir Putin has been able to do is rally the Russian people around the flag, especially when he taps into the nostalgia or the nationalism that's found in Russia, certainly in certain parts of Russia. When the going gets tough, he always finds a way to get the people to rally around the Russian flag, whether this is a military intervention somewhere or some great scientific expedition in the Arctic. He's found a way to do this, and so far it's worked for him. One can only assume that eventually he's going to run out of luck.
We are talking with Luke Coffey, and I want to direct our listeners to a piece that you wrote last summer. It's available at heritage.org, and the headline is as follows: "Wishful thinking will not change Russia's bad behavior." What's the message?
Well, we shouldn't pretend that someday Vladimir Putin is going to wake up and want to be a credible and genuine partner for the West, and specifically for the United States. We've had multiple administrations try this in the past. The Bush 43 tried to have a rapprochement with the Russians. That didn't work out when the Russians invaded Georgia. President Obama, of course, had the Russian reset. The Russian reset quickly turned into a Russian regret when we saw what Russia did with Ukraine. So President Trump should not fall into this trap where he thinks he can be the president that actually improves relations with Russia. Because the truth is, nothing since coming to power in 1999 has shown that Putin can be a credible partner for the United States. He's tried to undermine our interests in many ways for the past better part of 2 decades.
Luke Coffey, director of the Allison Center for Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation, we thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.